Researchers surveyed 247 pairs of parents and their adolescent children on how often and to what degree these parents could understand their children's feelings and respond with appropriate concern. Interestingly enough, they also took blood samples. Empathetic parents and their children were both better off psychologically. Children of empathetic parents also, interestingly enough, showed lower levels of inflammatory markers. But here is what is very interesting. Their parents were just the opposite. Their blood samples revealed low-grade systemic inflammation. The point, you see, is that empathy requires us to put our own feelings aside to focus on someone else's feelings, an effort which is linked to increased stress and higher inflammation in our bodies. Empathetic parents may also be much more willing to sacrifice their own health for their children's sake, foregoing things like sleep, exercise, and other activities that could mitigate the stress of caregiving. So what are the implications of this research? Well, the theological implications are very rich. The notion that love necessarily takes a physical toll on the one doing the loving. Now, this might be unpleasant to hear, but it certainly resonates with what Jesus has preached through his entire ministry and what resonates with the gospel. It stands as a reproof to all who might be tempted to diminish the sacrificial price of being a Christian, of having empathy. The deeper empathy, the deeper the empathy, the more severe the impact on our own physical bodies. Now, of course, there's a line between deep empathy and this modern tendency to over-identify with one's children, like being a helicopter parent, which creates a different kind of suffering. But on this Mother's Day, we salute the demanding and the overwhelming task that women take on to be a good enough mother. Not perfect, just good enough. As I look around this empty church, I can visualize so many parents, so many mothers who have children who have medical issues that demand so much sacrifice and patience and indeed at times suffering. So this Mother's Day, we applaud all of you mothers who have taken on this responsibility with such care and loving attention, sacrificing so much for your children. Now, it might be Mother's Day, but let us salute all parents, all mothers and fathers, grandparents, those who are mothers and fathers who might not even be biological mothers and fathers, but who are taking care of children, struggling with children during this pandemic, trying to homeschool, dealing with your child's impatience at being home and lack of understanding of why they can't go out and be with their friends. They want life to be back like it was, and it's not going to be that way for a while. And we know this is so extremely difficult for all of you caretakers, parents. So you are certainly in all of our thoughts and prayers for the heroism that you are showing as good enough parents, mothers and fathers and caretakers of children. And again, during this pandemic, I think all of you as parents have to be really gentle on yourselves because it's an extremely challenging and stress-filled time for all of you. And just being good enough is enough. You don't have to be perfect. And please be gentle on yourselves during this time. The words of Scripture are very poignant for all of you. In the Acts of the Apostles this weekend, that awareness that the widows were not being taken care of. But as we look around the world these days, there are so many people that are not being taken care of, who need compassion and caring. We mentioned mothers and fathers, but the elderly, those who are living alone, who have no one to take care of them, the millions of our caregivers themselves, those of you who are sick and in hospitals and your families can't be with you. In John's Gospel, Jesus reaches out to all of us during this pandemic. That phrase that he says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith also in me." So once again, we're faced with the question, where is God in all of this? And once again, we're faced with mystery. God doesn't take our pain away, but God gives us the grace to deal with it. Any mother will attest that it is only through the pain of childbirth that such joy does come forth. And then, of course, even after childbirth, the sacrifices that you have to make throughout bringing up your children as they become testy adolescents, and then they leave home and leave you alone at times. That great challenge of raising children, with all of its joys and sorrows, all parents pay the price of love. We have to remember there's always a price. Thus, we thank all on Mother's Day. We thank all parents this day for your willingness to pay the price. So during this pandemic, we're all challenged to pay a price, the price of love and compassion and caring. Let us use our mothers and fathers as models of sacrifice, as each one of us is now called to sacrifice to keep one another safe and healthy. Because Jesus' challenge to not let your hearts be troubled will be met only if each one of us reaches out to each other to display this sacrificial love and compassion that so many are in need of during these most challenging days.